You started off your comments this morning by referencing the short-term energy outlook and some of the information contained in that. A lot of focus here in the Senate about the situation with Iran and the negotiations that have been taking place there. So I wanted to start my questions out with the Iran situation. In the short-term report, it's noted that Iran holds about 30 million barrels of crude in storage, and that they can ramp up and production by some 700,000 barrels a day by the end of 2016 in the event that sanctions are lifted there. And obviously a great deal of discussion about when any sanctions might be lifted, but one thing that we do know is that we understand that sanctions have cost Iran some $40 billion in oil revenues just last year alone, and that's coming out of the Treasury Department. So a couple quick questions for you this morning, Mr. Sieminski. If an agreement is reached that does lift those sanctions on Iran's exports, would you expect that most of these new barrels to be exported would be to global markets?
Thank you for the reminder. Iran has, we believe, about 30 million barrels of oil in storage. The removal of sanctions and how the sanctions are removed and whether it happens slowly over time or immediately is still undecided as far as we can tell in the negotiations. Would make a big difference. Iran's production of crude oil very recently is around 2.8 million barrels a day. A couple of million barrels a day of that is being used internally, so their exports are fairly low now. They will go up if the sanctions are removed. How rapidly the oil and storage goes into the markets will depend a lot on how the markets behave themselves. If they were to try to put all 30 million barrels a day on the market very quickly, it could lower the price and they would get lower revenue than they would expect. If you assumed that they might try to move that over, let's say, a 100-day period, the impact would be 0.3 million barrels a day. We believe that Iran over time could increase its current production and exports by about 0.7 million barrels a day. So the total amount would be about 1 million barrels a day of production coming onto the market. And it's really hard to see right now, Senator, how that could be absorbed without causing either other production to go down or the price to go down.
Well, I guess the direction of my question is if we're assuming that if sanctions are lifted, and there is that opportunity for export, not just internally within the country, but opportunity for export, that there will be additional revenue that is generated to Iran that they would otherwise not have had. And then our situation here in the United States is, American companies are subjected to an export ban here. So you've got an incongruence going on here where we will have Iran able to make money off selling oil to our friends, our allies, and using that new revenue for whatever purposes, perhaps nefarious purposes, we don't know. And at the same time, if we were to go to this snapback that everyone keeps talking about or reimpose sanctions, it would be helpful here in this country if we were willing to lead from the front on this and lift our own outdated restrictions on exports, helping other countries. This is more of a political statement than the analysis that you have given us, but I think it is important for us to recognize that if these sanctions are lifted And we, in fact, keep our own domestic sanctions in place, if you will, our ability to export a product that, again, could help our friends and allies and help our own country. It effectively ends up being a liability for us.
Mm-hmm. I did bring with me a list of the studies that we've completed on the topic of crude oil exports in response to the letter that I received from you and Senator Cantwell. And one of those does deal with the issue of how gasoline prices are set in the U.S. markets. They generally tend to be tied to the global oil price rather than the West Texas Intermediate benchmark. What that does suggest is if more crude oil enters the global markets, whether it's from U.S. exports or from Iran or from production anywhere, it would tend to lower the global oil price, which would tend to lower gasoline prices in the U.S. So one of our reports does suggest that allowing more exports of crude oil would either be neutral or lower the gasoline price. There were a few studies that suggested that it could cause gasoline prices to go up. That seems to be a pretty low probability in our view.
Well, we appreciate the work that you did on that report. And again, I thought that the overall conclusion there to be drawn that we would see an ultimate lowering in price, not only worldwide, but here in this country, was very beneficial for the discussion and the debate going forward. Senator Cantwell.